welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be the answers to the questions from my Q&A announcement. So I got a lot of questions and I'm going to do my best to answer as many as I can. But the ones that I don't get to, I will answer when I hit 1,000 subscribers and I do a YouTube live video. So I'm just going to kind of jump right in. But real quick, if you're not subscribed, please click the subscribe button. I do post videos at least once a week. I would love to post videos more, but unfortunately, due to time, I can't. But, you know. So, yeah, let's do this thing. The first question is, what is my name? So my name is Sarah. I own 4 ferrets. Their names are Weasel, Lucy, Bear, and Ruby. Another question that I got was, am I going to get any more ferrets? And the answer to that is not right now. So I guess I initially started with Weasel and I got him, and I would say within a couple of days, it became very clear to me that he needed to have a friend, and that it was a mistake to only buy 1 ferret. So I went back and I got his sister. And then a couple of months later, it just so happened that I got Bear. So basically first of all, I got all my ferrets from the pet store. They're not rescues and they are Marshall's ferrets. And to be honest, at the time, I was not as educated on Marshalls as I am now. So I did get I did look into adoption, but there wasn't it just didn't work out at that particular time, and I wanted a baby ferret, so I went and I got my baby ferrets. And then a couple of months later, my friend who works at their pet store, they had Bear, and she showed me Bear, and he was super, super cute, and so I got Bear. And then, let's see, how I got Ruby is that Ruby was purchased by someone, and then they brought her back, and basically, after about 24 hours, told the people at the pet store that she didn't get along with their other ferrets. And so they returned her. So at that point, you know, she had gone to someone's house, and I just felt really bad for her. And I felt like she wasn't really given a fair shake to get along with the other people's ferrets. I mean, how do you know if a ferret gets along with a new ferret will get along with your current ferrets if within 24 hours? I just don't see how you would know that if you properly introduce them. So knowing that she was purchased and then returned, I went and got her. So that's how I ended up basically with the 4 ferrets. If a situation occurred and there was a ferret that needed to be rescued or needed a home, I would obviously do that. All of my animals, with the exception of the ferrets, really are rescues. Am I seeking to buy another ferret or add another ferret at this time? No. I think 4 is good. Financially, it's expensive, and I just don't think it's something I need to do at the moment. So that's my answer to, am I getting more ferrets? Not right now. Okay, so what is my favorite DIY? So my favorite DIY that I've done so far on my channel is the ferret playmat. And the reason that is my favorite is because it kind of incorporates a bunch of different DIYs. And so to do the playmat, you also have to make a tunnel, a sleep sack. You have to make a hidey hole hammock, all kinds of things happen to make this playmat. And so for me, the playmat just incorporates a bunch of other DIYs, and you can really be creative and kind of put on it whatever you want, and it's kind of fun. And I kind of did that on a whim when I made that. And you guys, when I did that tutorial, I had never made a playmat before. It was something that I kind of made as I went along, and there really was not a solid plan for that. So that was probably so far my favorite DIY. Here's one. Are ferrets expensive? So yeah, ferrets are expensive. I would consider ferrets to be expensive initially, and then also routine care can be expensive. So initially, just to bring a ferret into your home can range anywhere from, I would say, maybe $65 to $70 if you're getting it from a rescue, potentially, all the way up to $250 or more, maybe, depending on if you're getting them from a breeder or a pet store. I can tell you that currently, pet store prices, I know Petco is running like $209 or something like that for a ferret, and I only know that because I get my litter there, and whenever I go in, I always look at the ferrets, and so the pricing is on it. But rescues, I think it depends on the rescue, depends on the price, and same thing would be the case for a breeder. So I know just to bring a ferret into your house, one ferret, I know I would say that I personally think that the average is around $100 to $150 roughly. And if you're going to get 2 ferrets, then, you're doubling that. And then also when you bring them home, you're going to have a cage. And, I know for me, I went and I got a Ferret Nation, so that was $250. And then you have to have food. I know that when you get them from a pet store, they typically have like 1 round of like distemper or something. Whatever it is, I don't know. My ferrets went to the vet almost immediately after I got them. So I pretty much have to take them to the vet shortly after getting them. Unless I guess you got them from a rescue, they would probably have their vaccines. I'm sure they come that way when they come from a rescue. But aside from that, I'm sure that a vet visit would be in the near future after getting your ferrets. So then you got the cost of the ferret, the cost of the cage, the cost of the vet visit, food, toys, and all of that. So just to bring a ferret home, I feel comfortable saying average would be around $400. And I feel like that's being modest. And that's like saying maybe if you got 1 ferret. So, and then annually you have vet checks. So for me, I have 4 ferrets. Their annual vet visit runs me anywhere from $300 to $400, depending on how much flea medicine I buy when I'm there. So you have the visits, and then you have all the any kind of routine vaccination or annual vaccinations that they need, in addition to any medications that you give them. So for us, I have to use prescription strength flea and tick medicine. And the reason is because the fleas where I live kind of are immune to the over-the-counter stuff. They really just aren't phased by it. So I don't bother using it because it doesn't really work. So all of my animals actually have to have prescription medication for fleas or it's like it has to be written by a vet. So, and I know that for the ferrets that they use Revolution for kittens I use for them. And so that stuff's kind of expensive, and that's monthly treatment. I do buy it in the big packages, but I have 4 ferrets. So a 6-month supply lasts me not even a full 2 months with my ferrets. So yeah, that's that. So that could be expensive. Food is expensive depending on what you feed your ferret, and then just litter and stuff like that. So yeah, I would not say necessarily the ferrets are the cheapest pet to own. In addition, I would also highly recommend, if at all possible, that you had some sort of savings set aside or some kind of emergency fund. And I know that that's not really something that a lot of people can do. I know I sit here and say that to you, and I don't have a ton of money in an emergency fund. But I speak from experience when I say that, because when I brought Weasel home he was about 12 weeks old. He broke his leg at about 16 weeks old, and that broken leg cost $1,000 to fix. So he broke his leg in a spot that could not be fixed with a cast. It had to be fixed with a surgery, and he had an external pin. So there was a pin hanging out of his leg for 8 weeks. That required several visits back to the vet on numerous occasions just to make sure that the pin hadn't slipped, that it didn't move, that it was healing properly, lots of other stuff. He actually went back into surgery once because the pin did slip. So I know that emergencies can happen. Ferrets I don't want to say that they're accident prone. I would say that they're curious, and they're very, very curious, and they're always into something. And even when you think that you ferret proofed the best, things can happen. And so for me, Weasel fell off of, so dumb. He fell off of a trash can with a lid that was, and I'm not even lying to you, no more than 12 inches off the ground. But he was a baby, and his bones were not 100% as strong as they are when they're adults. And so he somehow got up on top of this trash can. I just never could have anticipated that he would have done this. I would have never even looked at that trash can or the situation and assumed that he could have even gotten up there. But he did, and he fell, and when he hit the floor, which was on a rug, okay? But it was on a rug on tile. This was an area rug, so it wasn't a very thick rug. Anyway, make a long story short, he broke his arm. And I had just graduated college. It was really rough. And so It cost $1,000, and yeah, it was rough. So if there's any way that you can put any money aside, if you're able to do that, I do recommend that you do that. I know that that's not always easy. That's not easy for me as I sit here right now and I work, a regular job and whatever, and I still don't have an extra $1,000 laying around to like fix ferret legs. I mean, if it happens, I fix it, but it's not ideal. So yeah, I do feel like ferrets can be costly, but I feel like that could be true with really any animal. I mean, I have cats and dogs, and they're costly too, in my opinion, when it comes to routine care and all of that stuff. So that will lead me into another question I got, which is, what other animals do I have? All of my animals are fixed and spayed and neutered and blah, 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 good stuff. The cats are all rescues and the dogs are rescues. I have 2 dogs, Blondie and Brosco. I have 5 cats. So for the cats, I have Mommy Cat and Multigrain, the 2 girls. Then I have Littlefoot, Scoop is the kitten, and Marshall. So I have 5 cats total. And then I have the Carnival Goldfish, and I refer to them as my Carnival Goldfish because they are Carnival Goldfish. They are now, though, like this big, and I just built them a pond. There's a link up here to the pond video. So I have them. They have those fish. They had babies a couple of months ago. I've had them for about 4.5 years, and they just now had babies, which I wasn't intending. I mean, I didn't intentionally have baby goldfish, but it just happened. So I have a 75-gallon tank with 150 tiny itty bitty goldfish babies that I have to figure out what to do with. And then I also have a community tank that is 20 gallons. There are chain loaches in that tank, and there are guppies in that tank. And then I also have a 40-gallon community tank that has Danios, celestial pearl Danios, zebra Danios, neon tetras, and chain loaches. So where do I buy my pet supplies? I buy my pet supplies from like a huge variety of places. Basically, I buy litter and stuff like that. I get from your normal box chain pet store. The ferret litter, the thing about the ferret litter is that I use paper pellets, but if you buy ferret litter that is paper pellets and you buy it where it's in a bag that's specifically for small pets, you pay like $5 more than if you were to buy the same exact paper pellets in the bag marketed for cats. So I get their paper pellets a lot of times from the big box store, and I get it for cats because it is identical to the one that's marketed for small pets. It's cheaper and you get more. So I buy really, really big bags. I have 4 ferrets, and I clean their litter box let me rephrase that. I clean their litter boxes, plural, more than once a day, and so I go through a lot of litter. I don't empty them completely out once a day, but I definitely scoop all of the poop and stuff out at least once. I do it in the morning, I do it in the evening, and then any time in between that I happen to be in there or notice that it's dirty, why would I not? So, and then as far as the food, I do not get any of my pet food from the big box stores, mainly because they don't sell the kind of food that I feed any of my animals. So all of my animals eat like more higher quality foods, and those are really hard to find. And actually, I've never found them in regular stores. So there's one food that I can get in like a small local store. So a lot of times the higher quality foods you can only get at small suppliers, or you can get them online. So I get a decent amount of my pet food online. I also get some of it from local stores that sell the types of food that I use for my animals. And so I kind of just go wherever I know that I can get what I need, and whatever I can't get in person, in store, in a brick and mortar store, I order from the internet, Amazon most of the time. So yeah, that's where I go. What got me into ferrets, and how long have I owned ferrets? So I owned a ferret when I was 16 years old, which was a long time ago. So I've always kind of really liked ferrets. I got my ferrets that I have now so I got Weasel and Lucy in May of 2018. And I really just love them. They got great personalities. They're fun. They're not your average pet. They're like super cute and sweet, and I just thought they would be a really great addition to my family, and so I got them. The thing that I really love most about them is their personalities. They have the best personalities, and they're all so my 4 ferrets are they're so different. They're so different from each other. They each are so independent and just so, their personalities are nothing alike. But it's really, really cool because they get along really well together. And then I have like a unique bond with each of them for different reasons and in different situations. And I don't know, they make me smile. Like no matter what is going on, they're just so funny and they're such characters. And they really just bring me a lot of joy. So let's see what else we got. How often do I change my ferret bedding? I change my ferret bedding at least once a week, and that is because it gets to stink and smell, and it's just fuzzy and hairy, and it needs to be changed. And the way that I launder wash my ferret bedding is I use non-scented detergents. If possible, I use Drif, the baby detergent. If not, I use like All or Tide or whatever has no scent in it. And I do not use fabric softener at all. And the reason for that is because ferret skin is really sensitive. And the last thing that you want to do is kind of use really heavily scented detergents. And then no matter how much you wash it, when you put it back in their cage, it could potentially affect their skin. And so I just feel that it's not a good idea. I just don't use scented anything when it comes to washing their bedding. And I do change it once a week, and I do feel like that's important. It helps cut down on the smell, and it also just keeps their room clean. So, yeah. All right, so here's some questions that I got. I guess these are questions that are more like, what's my opinion on this? So I'll give you my opinion. So for the next couple questions, I'm going to give the question and I'm going to give my personal answer. Just please know that these are my opinions. They're just strictly my opinions. So if, take it for what it's worth. I am a YouTuber. I am not a doctor. I am not a vet. I am not a ferret professional. I am a person who owns ferrets, and I only speak from experience. Can a 12-year-old have a ferret? Do I think a 12-year-old can have a ferret? The answer to that question is yes. I absolutely believe that a 12-year-old could have a ferret with some conditions. So the thing that I would recommend is that, well, let me just say this. A 12-year-old, the reason I believe a 12-year-old can have a ferret is because at 12 years old, I do feel like there are lots of 12-year-olds that are responsible to some degree. I feel like by the age of 12, you kind of have an idea about like routines and taking care of things to some degree. I mean, obviously you're 12 years old, so let's keep that in perspective. But at the same time, I do feel like it is a great age to kind of start to teach more and more responsibility in a sense of, and caring for a pet is a great way to do that. The conditions that I would recommend, or the things that I would recommend, is obviously that the parent or the caregiver of the 12-year-old just kind of be involved in that to a degree, or at least make sure that that ferret is getting the attention and care that it needs. And what I mean by that is that ferrets need to be out of the cage at a minimum 4 hours a day. Now I say that because that's the that's the minimum suggestion, that they're out 4 hours a day. I personally feel that ferrets should be out of their cage far more than 4 hours a day. But if you were to Google, how long should my ferret be out of a cage? Google's going to tell you 4 hours at minimum. So I will say that because that's the kind of standard answer. But a lot of ferret owners don't agree with that, and I am one of those. I don't agree with that. I think the ferrets need to be out of their cage more than 4 hours a day. Even if your ferret comes out of the cage, plays for 25 minutes, and takes a nap on your floor, under your couch, wherever, that ferret needs to be out of that cage at least 4 hours a day, and if at all possible, additional 4 hours a day at minimum. And the reason is because they're active, they're curious, they don't want to be pent up. They're not meant to be in a cage. The cages are for their protection, I guess, in situations where they can't free roam. But at the end of the day, they are not animals that are meant to be in a cage. The cage is literally just for safety. If you have a situation where you can't let them free roam. But just remember that, they want to get out and they want to move. Think of them like your dog. You wouldn't leave, well, I guess some people do leave their dogs in a cage, but that's a whole nother story I'm not even going to touch. But I do believe that, so if your 12-year-old is unable to provide that ferret with enough time out of the cage, then maybe that wouldn't be such a great pet. Maybe your 12-year-old is into sports or has lots of things going on and they just can't, they don't have the time, and that's not their fault. They're 12. So if there's, just to make sure that the ferret gets out of the cage enough is really important. And then just to also make sure that the ferrets are getting fed and all of the things that, you would have to check for ferret care. It's just that that's overseen. Or that if something happens and, your 12-year-old becomes involved in something and then that the ferret doesn't kind of go to the wayside. That's really my only issue with children having ferrets. I think absolutely that kids 12 and up can have ferrets. I don't see why they couldn't, and I don't see why they couldn't successfully. I just feel like it would be important to have an adult around just to make sure that everything is being done when that child is unable to do it. So that's really kind of where I am with that. Okay. So the next question is, should ferrets get annual vaccines? And the answer to that question, I personally believe, is yes. However, there may be some vaccines that your vet offers that you may feel that your ferrets don't need. I recommend that you just do a little bit of research on that. But this is the thing about vaccines that I really want to stress and that I really want to point out. So when it comes to rabies and distemper, those two vaccines, it is highly, 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 highly recommended that those vaccines are not given at the same time on the same day. The reason is that it can cause there can be adverse bad reactions. In addition, it is very important too that I know for me, when I take my ferrets to the vet to get their vaccinations, when they do their vaccines, I typically have to wait. They give my ferrets their vaccines, and then I have to wait at least 30 minutes before I can leave. And the reason is because your ferrets are prone to have reactions. That doesn't mean most ferrets don't have reactions, but it can happen. And it is more so with each vaccine, each distemper over the years, it's more common that your ferret could have a reaction. So it's less common with the first vaccine and more common by vaccine number 7. So it's really recommended that you don't leave your vet's office for at least 30 minutes just to ensure that there is no adverse reaction to your ferret. Do I think it's okay to have only one ferret? The answer to that is I do think it's okay to only have one ferret. And the reason is because some people can only have one ferret. But the other thing is that there are plenty of people that have one ferret, and that ferret is happy, healthy, thriving, doing well, everything is okay. However, I will say, personally, I recommend getting 2 ferrets. And the reason is, there's a couple of different reasons, and I'm sure there's more than the ones I'm about to list. But basically, your ferret needs a companion or someone to play with. Even so, on the times when you're at work or you're not home or you're not around, if that ferret has another ferret, then they have someone to be with. They're very, very social creatures. Very, very social. And so by themselves, they're lonely and they could get depressed. So if you have one ferret, you have to I feel like you need to make sure that you just have to constantly, play with them and just make sure that they're out of the cage far more than 4 hours a day. And there's a lot of things that go into having one ferret. That also go into having multiple ferrets, but on a higher level, because you have to kind of compensate for the fact that you are that ferret's other person. You're their playmate. You're the only thing that they have. So when you have multiple ferrets, it allows them to be more like ferrets and interact with their same species and bond and not be lonely and just be able to play. And no matter how I play with my ferrets, I am never going to mimic exactly another ferret. And it's so important that, I watch my ferrets play, and they love each other, and they have so much fun. But no matter, I can't play with them the way that they play with each other. And so I do think it is important to have 2 ferrets. Do I think that you could have one ferret and do it successfully and that ferret would be happy? I do. I do believe that. And I think that everyone's situation is different and everyone's circumstances are different. And so I don't feel comfortable saying, you have to have 2 ferrets. I don't. I mean, I know people that have one ferret. There's YouTubers that have one ferret, and those ferrets are healthy and they're happy and they're okay. So I do think you can have one ferret. I just think that you have to be aware of that ferret's needs and what you have to do to be able to provide that, or make up for the fact that there isn't another ferret to compensate for when you're not around. Minimum cage size for a ferret. So if you have one ferret, you could probably get the single ferret nation. So that would be okay. I recommend highly against any of the plastic cages. They're just not good cages. They're not suitable for ferrets. They just don't provide the housing, the safety, the space. So I am a Ferret Nation, Critter Nation kind of chick all the way. Purview makes a pretty decent cage as well. And then there's a company, I'm trying to think of the name. It's a great company too. They do like custom cages. What is the name? I'll put it in the description. But anyway, so they say that 2 ferrets could live in a ferret nation, like a single ferret nation, but I just don't think there's enough room in there for 2 ferrets personally. So I recommend that if you have more than 1 ferret, that you get the double ferret nation or the double critter nation or some sort of 2-story cage that's not plastic. And that way they have plenty of room. And they can play, and there's different levels, and it allows them to kind of have more space, especially if you're not able to let them free roam. So I have actually have a double critter nation, and the only difference in the critter nation and the ferret nation is the way that the bars are. So with a critter nation, the bars are horizontal, so the ferrets can climb that, and that's why people recommend the ferret nation. The bars are vertical when the ferrets can't climb the cage. So, but I do have a critter nation, and even though my ferrets they have their own room and they're not locked in that cage at all, they choose to sleep in there. They actually sleep in there more times than not. So of all the spots in their room that they can sleep, I always find them asleep in their cage, and that's their choice. That they come and go in there as they please. So that's what I think. That's kind of where I'm at with cages. I don't think going bigger would hurt anything. That's kind of where I'm at with it. So, okay. So a question that I get all the time is, what do I feed my ferrets, and do I feed my ferrets raw? So the answer is I do not feed my ferrets raw. And I'm going to tell you guys why, but not because I feel like I'm obligated to do that. And the reason that I don't typically discuss this topic is because there's lots of people that have very strong opinions on this. And I just feel like sometimes what works for some people don't work necessarily for others. And that is okay. If your ferret is getting the nutrition that they need and that they're healthy, I don't necessarily feel like you're doing something terribly wrong if you're unable to feed raw. I mean, it happens, and not everyone's able to do it, and that is that. And I'm one of those people, and here's why. This is my reason. It is what it is. So basically, when I got my ferrets, they were on Marshalls because they were Marshall's ferrets, which is the worst food ever. So of course I did some research before I got my ferrets, obviously, and I also owned a ferret when I was younger, so I knew to take them off of that. And as time went on, I obviously learned more and more and more, but in the process of that, they had gotten older, and they are imprinted on the food that they're on. And while I do know that I could transition them and that I could do it successfully because it can be done, it's timing. And the truth is that right now I work a regular job like most of America, and I also commute. I commute back and forth to work. I spend 2 hours a day in the car. I get home from work. I have a ton of stuff to do. Not only do I deal with the ferrets, I have the other animals, and I have, just life. And in order to get them to a raw diet, I would have to transition them, which I believe sincerely would not be as easy as just giving them raw food. So that would require me to devote a lot of time, at least initially. And the problem with that is that I don't have that time. And so I feel like if I cannot guarantee that they're eating what they need to eat on a raw diet, because I'm unable to ensure that they're transitioned correctly or that they're eating everything that they need to eat to be healthy. So when you feed raw, as I'm sure many, many, many of you know, I can't go downstairs and pull chicken out of my freezer and call that dinner for the ferrets. That absolutely is unacceptable and will not work. And so due to the requirements, the nutritional requirements, I would have to ensure that they are getting all of those nutrients that they need from all of the different types of raw that you can do, the bones, the hearts, the liver, all that good stuff. So I don't really feel that I have the time to do that at the moment. And then that leaves me feeling like they wouldn't get all of the nutrition that they need. And that to me seems more irresponsible than feeding them what they're eating right now. So and the reason that I think it would be difficult to transition them and that it would take me time that I really don't have is I have switched their dry food. So after getting them and doing some research, I quickly learned that there's lots and lots of dry foods, and some are much better than others. There's a chart. I will put a link in the description. That's a pretty decent chart. It's highly recommended by lots of people, but it's also just a really good chart, and it kind of shows you the best types of food, I believe, even addressing raw all the way down to the kibbles and all of that. And so after doing some research and looking at that chart, I decided to switch their kibble. And just doing that was difficult because they wanted what they were eating, and that took some time. And so, but because I could do it slowly and mix it in with their current food until they were finally transitioned over, it wasn't as hard as having to sit with them and spoon feed them and all of that stuff until they transition over to a raw diet. And so for me, I need to make sure that they're getting all the nutrients they need, which I don't believe I could do at the moment due to time constraints. And so therefore, I do not feed raw. That's just kind of is what it is at the moment. Now, if my situation changes and time opens up, or I'm not commuting as far every day, then perhaps that would be something I could take on. But in the moment, I just feel like it's not something that I can do at this time. And so I don't. And that really is as simple as that. So that's where I am on raw feeding. And then, like I said, I do feed a mix. I feed a mix of 2 different types of dry food from the chart, from the green portion of the chart, and you'll see there's if you look at the chart in the description. And then I also feed a freeze-dried, raw freeze-dried food to them. So they get like they have a kind of a mix of 3 different types of food, and they seem to be doing well. And they're not unhealthy. They're okay at the moment. So we're gonna go with that. And I'm just going to leave it there. But I will say that if you do have any questions on raw feeding, or you have any questions about how to raw feed or any of that, you probably won't find that on this channel. And basically that is because it's just not something that I'm overly versed in. And I just feel like it would be really irresponsible for me to talk about raw feeding when I have no really idea, because I don't do it myself. I mean, I know a lot about it. I don't know enough about it that I feel comfortable sharing a bunch of information with you guys. However, there's lots of people on this platform. One person in particular who is excellent and has a lot of education and a lot of knowledge on raw feeding. So if you're interested, do a little search. I'm sure the channel will come up and all you need to know will be there. So yeah, that's that question. And then the other question, there's another question I get a lot too, which is, do I support Marshalls? And the answer, the short answer is no. Marshalls is basically the puppy mill of ferrets. So they mass produce ferrets for a profit. They don't do an excellent job of caring for them. They obviously promote terrible food, and then they have this contingency. We're gonna give you a warranty on your ferret, which is insane to me that you would even have a warranty on a live animal, but whatever. They put a warranty on your ferret if you leave them on their food, on Marshall's food, for a year. You could take your warranty and shove it, basically. So the minute that I got my ferrets, I voided the warranty because I stopped feeding their food. But I will say this, the thing about Marshalls is that unfortunately they do monopolize the market. Particularly in the United States. So most of the big box stores, if not all, they only sell Marshall's ferrets. And aside from that, your options then to get a ferret then become a breeder or a rescue. Now, while I highly promote rescues, and if I were to get ferrets in the future, I would go through a rescue first. And then secondly, I would probably go to a breeder, but that would be my options. Unfortunately, there's lots and lots of people who either want baby ferrets, and breeders, most breeders are responsible. And so when they have ferret kits that come up for sale, or they're ready, the litter is ready, they're normally taken or spoken for because, anybody who kind of knows that to go to a breeder has kind of already kind of claimed that, they're in line. That's how that works. So a lot of people don't have the patience to wait for the next litter to come, or, however, they just don't. And so they go to the store and they buy a ferret and they get a Marshall's ferret. Or you do what I did, and what I believe lots and lots of people do, is that you get a Marshall's ferret and then you become more and more educated as time goes on. And then you learn more and more about Marshall's farms after you've already gotten your ferrets. So I can't undo that my ferrets are Marshall ferrets. I wouldn't trade them for the world. And if they're my babies, and so I can't undo that. But do I support Marshalls as a company? No. I mean, I can't cuss. They're not good, and they don't really care. They care about their pocketbooks, and that's what they care about. I do own Marshall products, such as the tic-tac-toe board, the clear tunnel, the octopus, like those types of things I own, and they are from Marshalls. Again, things that were purchased prior to a lot of research being done on my part. So, you know, I am not going to throw it out the window. I already bought it now, so I'm going to use it, you know. But in general, no. I mean, I think Marshalls is pretty crappy. I think the likelihood of everyone not using them or buying ferrets from them is probably pretty slim to none, and the likelihood of putting them out of business is probably pretty slim to none. I don't know, they got a lot of money, so it's amazing what money can do in this world. So, but at the same time, like I said, I do have toys that my ferrets do use that are from Marshalls, and that obviously would be promoting them as well. You know, and what I know now and what I knew 2 years ago is two totally different things. So that's kind of where I stand at the moment on Marshalls' crazy, disgusting farms. All right, so I think I'm going to wrap it up at this point. I don't want the video to go on and on and on because people kind of stop watching after a while. So just for the purpose of kind of keeping it like a normal video length, I'm going to wrap this up. But I will answer the rest of the questions when I hit 1,000 subscribers and I do my YouTube live video. So the sooner I hit 1,000 subscribers, the sooner I'll have the rest of the answers to these questions. If you have any additional questions in the meantime, please drop them in the comment section of this video. Also, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. I have 773 subscribers right now, and I'm really close to 1,000, which would be super exciting. I cannot even believe that I have as many as I have now. I definitely didn't see my YouTube kind of taken off like that, so that's really exciting. So thank you guys so much for your support. Thanks for watching my video. Thank you for subscribing, and thank you for interacting and just leaving questions and comments. That's really awesome. Yeah, so next week I will be doing a DIY tutorial. I will have it up and ready by the weekend, and that's about it. If you aren't subscribed, please click the subscribe button, and have a great week. I will see you guys next time.